Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. A classic treason explodes across Genoa City when Cain Ashby discovers the unbelievable verity. Phyllis Summers has vended him out, trading his most guarded intelligence straight into Victor Newman's ruthless hands, and the moment Cain pieces it all together, commodity inside him snaps in a way it has ent since the darkest days of his history. What began as a calculated, uneasy alliance between two master manipulators, erected on participated adversaries, collective ambition, and rumored pledges behind unrestricted doors is cancelled in a single ruinous consummation. Phyllis no way intended to stand with Cain, only to use him as currency. The disclosure hits Cain like a punch to the casket when Victor suddenly moves with creepy perfection, fighting strategies only Cain knew, shutting down plays that were no way spoken audibly except in confidence. And Cain's mind races back through every discussion, every pause, every calculating look Phyllis gave him when he laid out his wind-up. The treason becomes inarguable when Victor all but confirms it without saying her name, trim, untouchable, and several way ahead, and Cain's fury ignites into commodity stormy. Phyllis didn't just blunder information, she handed Victor the roadmap to Cain's destruction, and in doing so, she shattered the fragile vision that they were equals in this war. As Cain confronts the verity, rage mixes with demotion, because the most brutal backstabbings don't come from adversaries, they come from mates who smile while stropping the cutter. Phyllis, ever the survivor, tells herself she made a smart move, that aligning with Victor was ineluctable, that Cain was always a means to an end, but she underestimates the depth of the storm she's unleashed. Cain doesn't explode incontinently, no, his wrathfulness is cold, controlled, frightened in its restraint, and that silence is what makes his coming move far more dangerous. When he eventually confronts Phyllis, the air between them crackles with undetermined pressure, times of participated chaos, and the raw sting of treason. Phyllis tries to spin it, averring she did what she had to do, claiming Victor would have gotten the intel ultimately anyway, that she simply chose the winning side before Cain dragged them both into ruin, but Cain isn't hearkening presently. He sees the verity with brutal clarity. Phyllis didn't choose survival, she chose power, and she chose Victor. His voice is low when he tells her the alliance is over, but the trouble beneath his words is unmistakable. This isn't just particular presently, this is war. Cain vows that Phyllis will lament the day she decided to vend his secrets for Newman blessing. And when he walks down, Phyllis feels a bite she can't shake, because she knows Cain Ashby doesn't curt. He retaliates. As the fallout ripples outward, Victor remains outwardly amused, confident he's annulled another trouble, but indeed the great Victor Newman may be undervaluing the consequences of turning Cain into a man with nothing left to lose. Cain begins moving in the murk, still rebuilding, rerouting alliances, and laying traps that indeed Victor's vast conglomerate may not see coming. And every step he takes is fueled by one singular ideal: make Phyllis pay for choosing him as contributory damage. Meanwhile, Phyllis finds herself insulated, caught between two elephants, realizing too late that Victor's favor is tentative and transitory, and Cain's wrath is endless. She starts to smell that Victor isn't guarding her, he's using her, and the safety she allowed she bought with Cain's intel is nothing further than a temporary guard. As whispers spread through Genoa City about the treason, commitment are tested, sides are chosen, and the narrative shifts from boardroom warfare to particular vendetta. Cain's wrathfulness becomes strategic, regular, and deeply particular, and he begins exposing Phyllis's vulnerabilities one by one, reminding her that he knows her better than anyone additional, her secrets, her fears, her pressure points, because she formerly trusted him with them. Phyllis tries to stay recalcitrant, averring she can handle whatever Cain throws at her, but cracks begin to show as Victor distances himself. The moment effects get messy, leaving her to face the consequences alone. The ultimate irony settles in like a cruel joke. By betraying Cain to cover herself, Phyllis may have sealed her own destruction. As the war escalates, it becomes clear this isn't about business. Presently it's about pride, vengeance, and the unsupportable cost of treason. Cain's protestation rings louder with every move he makes. Alliances can be rebuilt, conglomerates can fall, but treason is no way forgiven. Genoa City braces for impact as two of its most dangerous players collide, with Victor watching from his throne, Phyllis caught in the crossfire, and Cain Ashby rising as a man converted, no longer seeking cooperation, only revenge. War has begun, and by the time the dust settles, no bone involved will walk down unscathed. The war Kane Ashby declared doesn't arrive with explosions or screaming captions, it arrives still, surgically, and with a perfection that makes it far more intimidating, because Kane understands commodity. Phyllis no way did the most ruinous vengeance doesn't advertise itself, it unfolds piece by piece until the target realizes too late that every escape route has formerly been sealed. In the days following the treason, Genoa City hums with an uneasy pressure, whispers spreading through boardrooms, extensions, and back cells at society as rumors swirl that Kane has gone dark. No public outbursts. No crapulous harangues. No impulsive miscalculations. That silence unnerves Phyllis more than any battle ever could, because she knows Kane well enough to fate that when he stops talking, he's planning. Phyllis tries to assure herself that she made the right move, that dealing Kane's intel to Victor secured her unborn, but Ms. Doubt gnaws at her confidence when Victor's address subtly shifts. His formerly frequent checks ways fade. His solace come colder, more transactional. Victor Newman doesn't award fidelity, he exploits it, and Phyllis begins to understand she didn't vend information, she vended influence, and formerly Victor uprooted its value, she came expendable. Kane, meanwhile, begins dismembering Phyllis's world from angles she no way anticipated. He doesn't go after her directly at first, rather, he targets the perception that has always been her topmost armor, control. Anonymous leaks face, not about Victor, not about Kane, but about Phyllis's history of strategic backstabbings, precisely framed to suggest a pattern of fidelity only when it serves her. Old injuries renew as abettors still start questioning whether trusting Phyllis is worth the threat. Meetings she formerly commanded now feel colder, shorter, more guarded. Doors that were always open suddenly near. Phyllis senses the shift but can't pinpoint its source, which only heightens her paranoia. She confronts Victor, demanding to know if he's distancing himself, but Victor deflects with infuriating calm, reminding her that in his world, strength is proven through results, not consolation. The communication is clear, she's on her own. As Kane's strategy unfolds, he makes his first overt move, not against Phyllis, but against Victor, exposing vulnerabilities in Newman operations that force Victor into damage control mode. Victor incontinently suspects Kane, and when he confronts him, Kane doesn't deny it. Rather, he smiles a rare, nipping expression, and delivers a warning Victor hasn't heard in decades. This isn't about winning presently, it's about consequences. Kane makes it clear that Victor's decision to buy treason has created an adversary who knows how to bleed conglomerates sluggishly. Victor dismisses him outwardly, but the trouble lingers, because Kane isn't reckless, he's regular, and Victor recognizes that kind of opponent each too well. Phyllis, caught between two men now laboriously maneuvering against each other, begins to horrify as she realizes she has no safe harbor. When she eventually confronts Kane face to face, the hassle is nothing like she expects. There's no shouting, no allegations, just cold verity. Kane tells her exactly how the coming phase will unfold, step by step, stripping down her vision of unpredictability. He reminds her that she tutored him numerous of her tactics, how to destabilize rivals emotionally, how to turn abettors into arrears, and now he's simply returning the favor. Phyllis tries to recapture control, righting him, criminating him of being obsessed, averring he'll destroy himself chasing vengeance, but Kane shuts her down with one ruinous line: "This stopped being about you the moment you proved I couldn't trust you." The recrimination cuts deeper than wrathfulness, she's no longer important enough to rage at, she's a problem to be annulled. As weeks pass, the consequences emulsion. Business openings dematerialize. Strategic mates still withdraw. Phyllis begins noticing that people are avoiding eye contact, that exchanges stop when she enters apartments. The character she spent times rebuilding after once dishonors begins unraveling, thread by thread. Indeed, those closest to her launch questioning her judgment, and the insulation becomes unsupportable. She switches out, making impulsive moves to recapture footing, but every attempt only tightens the trap Kane has laid. The further she struggles, the clearer it becomes that Kane is always one step ahead, anticipating her responses, exploiting her patterns, and forcing her into miscalculations she can't undo. Victor, realizing too late that aligning with Phyllis may have been a misapprehension, starts distancing himself intimately, framing her as an independent driver who made choices without Newman countersign. Phyllis hears the shift in his language, sees the strategic retreat, and the treason stings nearly as deeply as Kane's rage. She confronts Victor again, furious, criminating him of abandoning her after she delivered exactly what he wanted, but Victor's response is brutal in its simplicity. She was paid an occasion, not protection. The alliance, like all of Victor's alliances, was tentative. Phyllis eventually understands the bitter verity. She didn't trade Kane's intel for safety, she traded it for a temporary vision of power. Meanwhile, Kane's influence grows still as unanticipated alliances begin forming around him, people Victor undervalued, people Phyllis alienated, individualities who fate that Kane's war isn't driven by pride but by principle. Kane positions himself not as a victim, but as a reckoning, someone who exposes the cost of treason in a megacity where fidelity is currency. His metamorphosis is inarguable. The man formerly defined by concession is gone, replaced by someone who understands that mercy only invites farther treason. Genoa City begins to shift, seeing that the balance of power is changing. The breaking point comes when Phyllis realizes Kane isn't trying to destroy her outright, he's forcing her to destroy herself. Possessed, hopeless, and stripped of support, she makes a final, reckless attempt to strike back, exposing sensitive information she believes will cripple Kane permanently. But the move backfires catastrophically, revealing that Kane anticipated it all on. The fallout is immediate and ruinous, attesting every rumored mistrustfulness about Phyllis's trustability and sealing her insulation permanently. The treason she formerly applied as armament becomes the substantiation used against her. As the dust settles, Kane stands victorious, not triumphant, but resolute. He didn't just survive treason, he rewrote the rules that allowed it to thrive. Victor watches from a distance, fating that while he may have won the battle for information, he may have lost control of the larger war. And Phyllis, once the queen of strategic chaos, is left standing alone in the wreckage of her own timber, eventually forced to defy the verity she avoided from the launch in a megacity erected on alliances and ambition. Treason always comes with a price, and this time, she's the one paying it. The war may not be over, but one thing is clear. Kane Ashby didn't just respond to treason. He turned it into a warning that will echo through Genoa City for times to come. By the time Genoa City realizes the war has entered its utmost dangerous stage, it's formally too late to stop it, because Kane Ashby is no longer operating from a place of response, he's executing an wind-up that was set in stir the moment Phyllis Summers chose to vent his trust for Victor Newman's blessing. The shift is subtle at first, but unmistakable to those who know how power really moves in this city. Kane steps into the light again, no longer happy to work simply in the murk, and his re-emergence sends a ripple of apprehension through every boardroom and extension connected to Newman Enterprises. He begins speaking intimately, not emotionally, not defensively, but with a calm authority that reframes the entire narrative. Kane positions himself as the man who saw treason coming and survived it, the strategist who refuses to play by the old rules where information is currency and fidelity is disposable. The communication lands hard, because everyone understands what he's really saying. If treason is the game, he's rewriting the stakes. Phyllis, meanwhile, is unraveling. The insulation Kane finagled has metastasized into full-bloated paranoia, and she can feel her influence slipping through her fritters no matter how tightly she grips it. Every discussion feels loaded, every silence accusatory. She senses judgment in every regard, hears dubitation in every pause. Her instincts scream that she's being boxed in, but she can't see the walls until she collides with them headfirst. Phyllis switches out again, sharper, louder, further reckless, convinced that aggression is her only remaining defense. She doubles down on Victor, demanding consolation, demanding protection, demanding acknowledgement that her immolation meant commodity. Victor listens, gravestone-faced and unmoved, and when he eventually responds, it's with a verity so cold it steals the air from her lungs. The moment she betrayed Kane, she proved she could betray anyone. Victor doesn't condemn her, he simply calculates her worth, and the verdict is ruinous. What Phyllis doesn't know is that Kane has formally anticipated this exact curl. He understands her patterns better than she understands herself, the way despair sharpens her lingo, the way fear drives her into unsafe ruses. Kane uses that knowledge to orchestrate the coming phase, drawing Phyllis into a public battle she can't control. It unfolds at a high-profile business peak, a room filled with Genoa City's most important players where Kane presents substantiation of systemic manipulation that subtly, unmistakably traces back to Phyllis. He no way says her name outright. He doesn't need to. The counter-accusations are clear, the damage immediate. Murmurs ripple through the room. Eyes turn. Alliances still shift in real time. Phyllis feels the ground cock beneath her bases as she realizes she's been exposed without being indicted, a far crueler fate than outright commination. Lowered and furious, Phyllis storms out, but the damage follows her. News spreads within hours, twisting perception into certainty, and suddenly her character isn't just spoiled, it's radioactive. People don't want to be seen defending her. They don't want to risk being associated with her. Phyllis has spent her entire life learning the art of survival in hostile home, but this feels different. This feels final. She confronts Kane again, this time in private, her countenance cracked, her rage slightly contained. She accuses him of trying to abolish her, of chastising her beyond reason, of pretending he's innocently superior when he's just as ruthless as Victor. Kane doesn't deny any of it. He simply tells her that the difference between them is intention. She betrayed to gain power, he redressed to restore balance. The words hit harder than any personality, because they strip her conduct of defense. Victor, watching the fallout consolidate, realizes the war has slipped beyond his control. He undervalued Kane's tolerance, his rigidity, and utmost critically, his amenability to endure loss without breaking. Victor attempts to reassert dominance, launching a counterattack designed to remind everyone who still holds the crown in Genoa City. But Kane anticipates the move, oohing just enough information to force Victor into protective mode without exposing himself. The stalemate is tense, unpredictable, and unsustainable, two elephants locked in a battle where neither can strike decisively without risking total collapse. And in the middle of it all stands Phyllis, decreasingly inapplicable, decreasingly expendable, and decreasingly apprehensive that she has come the goat for a war she helped enkindle but can no longer impact. The cerebral risk begins to show. Phyllis becomes erratic, oscillating between defiance and despair, induced that if she can just expose one final verity, she can turn the drift. She starts digging, into Kane's history, into Victor's secrets, into any influence she can find, but the deeper she goes, the more insulated she becomes. Indeed, her closest confidants begin to pull down, scarified by her intensity, her obsession, her turndown to accept responsibility. Phyllis tells herself she's fighting for survival, but deep down, she knows she's fighting against impertinence, the one thing she's no way been suitable to tolerate. Kane, seeing the approach of commodity disastrous, accelerates his timeline. He doesn't want Phyllis destroyed, he wants the cycle ended. He arranges one final reckoning, a controlled exposure that will force the verity into the open and ramify the remaining vestments, binding all three of them together. But Phyllis, now completely deranged by fear and treason, interprets his silence as vulnerability. She makes a disastrous move, releasing information she believes will annihilate both Kane and Victor in one strike. The release is messy, inadequately timed, and riddled with inconsistencies, a hopeless adventure that backfires incontinently. Rather of destroying her adversaries, she confirms every dubitation about her insecurity, her unreliability, her amenability to burn everything down if it means not going down alone. The fallout is nippy and merciless. Legal pitfalls impend. Business mates evaporate overnight. Victor intimately disavows her, framing her conduct as guileful jest. That Newman Enterprises condemns unequivocally. Kane says nothing, and that silence speaks volumes. Phyllis eventually understands the cruel harmony of her situation. She betrayed Kane to secure Victor's favor, only to lose both, and in doing so, she destroyed the very foundation she reckoned on to survive. As the megacity absorbs the shockwaves, Kane emerges not as a whipper, but as a constant, steady, unyielding, and resolute. He didn't win by crushing his adversaries, he won by outliving their worst instincts. Victor, forced to recalibrate yet again, recognizes Kane as commodity far more dangerous than a rival, a memorial that indeed conglomerates can bleed if they underrate the cost of treason. And Phyllis, once the mastermind of chaos, is left standing alone at the edge of a megacity that no longer trusts her, no longer fears her, and no longer needs her. The war has changed everyone involved, but its final assignment echoes louder than ever through Genoa City. Treason doesn't just destroy alliances, it reshapes individualities. And for Kane Ashby, that metamorphosis is complete. He's no longer the man who trusted Phyllis Summers. He's the man who survived her, and made sure no bone ever forgets what that survival cost.